everybody wants to get united. Like, what we gotta do is meet everybody on 149th Street at the bench.
Hey guys, welcome back to the bench. Today we're rating your graffiti on a scale from 1 to 10 that you submitted over on Instagram. And along the way, I'm gonna give you guys some tips and tricks in order to help you along your graffiti journey, help you get to where you're trying to go with your skills and knowledge. But stick around to the end because I have an opportunity for you guys that some of you may be interested in. Now, there's one mistake that a lot of newer graffiti artists are guilty of, and it doesn't matter how good your letters are, if you're making this mistake, your letters are likely going to suffer. And that's what we see with our friend here, Acer. He's got some pretty nice letters for the most part. That's a beautiful A. But sloppy lines and shapes will destroy any Throwie, no matter how good the letters are. Now, the downside to having messy lines and shapes is the fact that lines and shapes progress faster than pretty much any other fundamental in every single art form, generally speaking. And the reason for that is because, well, we always have to use lines and shapes to draw practically anything. So if you have messy lines and shapes, that indicates that you haven't practiced anything else pretty much at all whatsoever. And we're talking having messy lines with typical mediums like pencils, pens, markers, not with specialty mediums like watercolors, oil paints, spray paints, because those take a big learning curve and some practice to get used to. So for that reason, we're gonna give this a good 2 out of 10. Right here, we got ourselves a piece from Plum, and immediately the first thing I'm noticing is the really clean, crisp, simple letters. You know me, man, I like the straight letters. I think they're pretty dope. We're gonna give this a good 5 out of 10 is because the M doesn't really flow with any of the other letters, not nearly as much as it could have. If you notice, everything has a pretty square and boxy structure. We get to the M, and it's the only letter with a really sharp structure. Not to mention the fact that the M is also much more wide than most of the other letters. Granted, the U has a serif, which helps to widen it just a little bit. The P is certainly really wide, so the P and the M work well together in that aspect, but given the fact that the widening of the M, especially in the center, appears to be more a cause of the basic boxes not really aligning as well as they could have, as opposed to stylistically tapering the M, that kind of makes the widening look less intentional, less like something that should have been there, and more like something that should have been corrected and went about in a different way. But still not bad. Then we keep that in mind and we look at his other piece that he went ahead and submitted here, and we see that he's not really comfortable with his M at all, and his fundamentals still need quite a bit of work, so that only strengthens my previous statement. Now, for anybody who's interested, I got a free gift for you. We have a digital sketchbook that you can download for free over on the website. This file works for Photoshop as well as Procreate, so if you're drawing any of those softwares, you're all set to go. And if you'd like, you could even submit your digital work or just photos of your artwork as well to the digital sketchbook, and we'll put it in there for you. We made the whole process a lot easier for anybody who's interested. Be sure to go ahead and check it out in the description down below. It's completely free. Then we go to Coin Prawn here. Keep it simple, my friend. Dude, I like the concepts, I like the ideas, but this is far from simple. If this is your definition of simple, I want to see your wild styles, because this is anything but simple. Now, that's not me ragging on you, that's not me trying to like get on your case, but when we look at this, you have a variant structure E. Your T's letter structure is heavily obscured, particularly the top left of it, because of the E's overlap. Now, you are doing really cool things here with attempting the overlap. It adds a lot of dimension to these letters, which is good, but your underlying understanding of letter structure is not there yet. What I would recommend doing is keep these general concepts in mind, but set aside time to not only study basic letter structures and graffiti's other fundamentals, of course, but also study the elements of art separately, outside of the context of graffiti. This is really important to do for the elements of art, that way you can understand the base formula that goes into some of these fundamentals. For example, 1-point perspective, and trying to understand how horizon line works, and how your vanishing points work, and how to go ahead and map those out properly. And cast shadows are another big thing. Once you understand how to properly use cast shadows, you can get a lot more dimension out of things like this, and the way you see your pieces in your head, you'll be able to actually bring those to life once you study those core foundational lessons. Also, lighting is another thing. We see here that on the left hand side of your E, you have a highlight, but on the right hand side of your E, you also have a highlight, but you don't really have any highlights on the right hand side of your R. Why is that? There's no justifiable reason for that to be the case with the lighting that you've already established within your own image. In short, we're gonna give this a good 3 out of 10, and my final tip is when you sit down to do your fun drawings, do stuff like this, enjoy yourself. But when you sit down to practice, it should only be basic fundamental studies with zero style added. That way you can actually understand those core fundamentals. Vegina! Wait, no, misread that. Hold up. Vengenza? I don't know what Vengenza is. Is that one of your homies? I'm not sure. But hey, this is a dope piece here. I like this. A pretty funky style, pretty funky fill-in, something that you don't really see too often. And overall, I dig the fill-in, especially the little swap that you have in the fill-in where you get to the E and it becomes purple and blue. And it's different than all the other colors, but it still works really well. Almost to the point where it doesn't even pop out. Now, typically when you take a letter and you change its fill-in like this, you add a bunch of weight to that letter and you also tend to diminish flow. In this case, that blue and purple isn't so overt to where it blares out at you. The purple, despite not being anywhere else, it's still pretty harmonious precise and it works smoothly in the context of this image, and I love it for that. And what's more is that the E still flows with everything else in many other ways. He didn't just rely on the letter structure, the actual interior details help to make the E flow as well. So even if it did lose flow, it immediately gets it back, and that's a great way to go about making a letter stand out. If you're gonna make a letter stand out, make it flow in other ways. Try that tip out in your guys' graffiti, and I think you'll be surprised with what you can do with that. I'm gonna give this a solid 8 out of 10. This is really, really nice. Now guys, before we get to the next one, I'm writing a new book, and I want you guys' help with it. It's a book all about how to do throwies, and just like the previous book, I want to feature your guys' work inside the pages to help teach some lessons. If you want to submit, head over to the website in the description down below and shoot your throwie on over for the book. I really appreciate it, and thank you guys that have submitted so far. Now our next throwie hit a really beautiful spot on a pretty busy street, and for that, we gotta show some appreciation. We gotta give some respect just for that alone. Now check this throwie out from Zoros. It's a beautiful spot he called, and though the throwie could use some work, it's a really good spot. Now as far as the throwie needing some work, this goes back to what we previously said before about having sloppy lines and shapes and how they can kind of be a little bit of a detriment. When you look at the letters a little bit closer, you can see how some of the shapes are a bit uneven, they're not super clean, the circles aren't as round as they should be. Now this is expected given the spot. I always like to give a little bit of a leeway in that regard, so we're not going to knock off too many points for that. We're going to give this a solid 4 out of 10. The spot is awesome. Now for those of you guys who are new to graffiti, this next throwie I'm about to show you is really what you should be aiming for as far as your shapes and your line work is concerned. When you see a throwie like this, you know the guy's got some experience under his belt. Look at how crisp and how clean those shapes are. There's no hesitation, there's no sloppiness. Each letter is exactly what it's meant to be. It is pinpoint accurate. And that's regardless of whether or not you like this particular style, right? Put that aside and just look at how clean those lines and how clean those shapes are. That's what you should be aiming for. Check out the negative space as well. Overall, a beautifully done throwie. And weirdly enough, I know this is kind of basic, right? But like, the O is probably my favorite letter. It's just really clean, really simple, really nice, very effective. Usually a lot of time people have the tendency to over stylize their O to try and compensate for its simplicity, but this guy knows what's up, and he just rocked a really clean O. My favorite letter. We're gonna give that a solid 8 or 9 out of 10. I dig it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. So Ursock shoots over this piece here, and it's not too bad, but something strikes me as a bit odd. You see, I'm looking at this piece, and I see the downward slope from the top horizontal piece on the E, and it leads directly into the leg of the R, and then the leg of the R leads directly into the S, and it makes me think that he's going for momentum flow here. Momentum flow is a form of flow that suggests movement through an image, and it's almost never used in graffiti, at least not intentionally. I can legitimately say I can count on half of a hand how many graffiti artists consistently, intentionally use momentum flow without destroying their piece. Now the reason it's so seldomly used in graffiti is because graffiti doesn't have a lot to it. It's just got the letters in its name, and momentum flow takes time to build. Not to mention the fact momentum flow typically dictates the structure of whatever it's in. Normally, human anatomy, it works really well with momentum flow. Comic books use it all the time because you can follow the momentum of a hero punching, and you can see that momentum go throughout the fist and the arm and the body, and it continues forward through the image, right? The person gets punched and like the momentum's going through their face, and you can really have time to build adequate momentum. With graffiti, you have to literally alter your structures to build that very same momentum, and there's not a lot of time to do it, especially if your name is a bit shorter. Not to mention the fact it's also extremely easy to break momentum, which is exactly what Ursock does with the O. Suddenly that momentum stops and it doesn't do anything. Therefore, the E bending downwards to build momentum, and the R leading directly into the S, and the S positioning itself to be right next to the R in such a way to receive that momentum, all of that was for naught because the momentum stops at the S. It doesn't do anything else. For that reason, we'll give this a good 5 out of 10. I like the piece overall, just wish it didn't go for the momentum if you weren't gonna go all the way. That's kind of the issue with momentum flow. You gotta go full-fledged with momentum, or you have to dissipate it properly. And if you want to learn more about flow and momentum, you know we got the books in the description down below. Best graffiti book on the market, but we also have a great playlist you can check out that teaches each one of graffiti's fundamentals. Dudes, that pretty much wraps up today's video. Don't forget, if you want to submit to our new Throwie book, you can do that in the description down below. Just follow the link and you'll be brought right to the submission page. But my friends, I want to thank you guys for watching, and thank you for submitting. I really do appreciate it. If you want more graffiti content, check out the best how to do graffiti tutorials right up here, and check out whatever YouTube thinks you'll like right down here. I'll catch you guys back here next week.